This is Chris Gallello from Microsoft, and he'll be talking about accessibility.
All right. So, hi, I'm Chris Gallello again from Microsoft. I work on the Office Online product, which, if you're not familiar with, if you go to office.com, it's like a free version of Office on the web, basically. So I deal with a lot with accessibility in Office Online, and we're trying to figure out always how do we make these complex, rich features more accessible. And annotations is an interesting area that we're running into, where we have annotations in the existing products, and we're trying to figure out what to do with them. It's not just Office Online. We have other products within Microsoft. So I'll start out with Visual Studio Online. This is another product that we're working on that's out on the web right now. It's basically, you can consider it to be a code editor on the web, and you can see we have code errors and also breakpoints where we have text that you're writing, so like code, you're writing this code, and then you might have a squiggly line error, and then if you hover over that, you get some text that says could not find symbol error. We also have breakpoints where you might highlight a line and put a breakpoint in there, and those things, we consider those to be annotations with annotated text and annotations. So for the purposes of this discussion, that's kind of how I'll be referencing these kinds of things. So the text that you're actually writing is the annotated text, and then the annotation is whatever the program gives back to you. In Office Online, so if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, there are comments in Microsoft Word. It works very similar with Word Online. It's kind of fuzzy here, but you can kind of see I have some text that's selected, and I added a comment over in the comments pane on the right. And so for those, I have, again, a bit of annotated text and then an actual annotation. And that may be something that I wrote or my friend wrote, a coworker wrote, and they put in my document. So trying to think about how do we make these kinds of things accessible for blind users, it's pretty tricky. From a sighted user's perspective, I think of annotations as I'm reading this text or this document, and then I might notice an annotation. And at that point, I have to make a decision as to whether or not I want to read that annotation or continue reading the document. So I have that decision point. Let's say I would decide to go and actually read the annotation. I use whatever visual cues are available to me and actually go off and read that annotation. Well, first I guess I have to find the annotation, and then I go read it. I might interact with it. So for example, with Word Online, we have you can reply to a comment or delete the comment. You can interact with that annotation. And then finally, I might go back to the text and just resume reading. So that we've been doing some brainstorming on our teams about how do we transfer that over to a screen reader experience. And we kind of have some starting thoughts, and I'm looking forward to today to discuss more possibilities. But when it comes to screen reader features that could actually make use of this, we want to be able to allow screen reader users to understand that there's an annotation in the document when they're reading. So it might be like when they're cursoring using the arrow keys, you might hear entering annotation or something like that. And then there should also be keyboard shortcuts to allow you to jump between the annotation and the annotated text. And then finally to jump back, and just resume reading as you were originally before you went to the annotation. So again, we've been doing some brainstorming, and we're trying to think about how do we actually make that kind of information available to the screen reader. And essentially, we need to make three things available to the screen reader. First is, what is this annotation? Again, Visual Studio Online, it might have code errors or breakpoints. Word Online, we have comments. We're also bringing in footnotes and endnotes. There are spelling errors. There's all these kinds of rich annotations that happen in a document that we want to make sure is available to the screen reader to announce. Secondly, we want to allow for blind users to jump back and forth between the two. So we need to make sure that users that in the DOM, we're actually referencing the two towards each other, the annotated text and the annotation. So if I think about what this might actually look like for Word Online, let's say we have that highlighted text there. That's the actual annotated text. I might have commented range 1 is the ID of the annotation text, or annotated text, and then comment 1 is the actual annotation. So I'll have ARIA annotation type equals comment there, and so the screen reader might announce when I'm arrowing into it, it might announce entering comment, for example, and that could be footnote or spelling error or anything. And then we have aria annotated by is comment 1, so it's an ID list that points to the annotation, and so you can see that. And then going back, we have, what's going on? There we go. aria annotation 4, and that's pointing to commented range 1. That way the screen reader is actually able to make that direct link, and so any keyboard shortcuts that the screen reader implements, whatever, those things can actually jump you between the two. Again, these are just starting thoughts that we've had. We're really excited to be here today to talk about these kinds of things. It's certainly different because we're talking about it from the perspective of annotation features that already exist in web pages, but we still think it's something to be discussed and something that we feel like there's going to be a lot of features in the future around the web where we want these rich annotations to be accessible to blind users. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
So one of the questions, name is Tim Cole, and one of the questions that's bringing up is how to think about local applications that do things already, and then how those might migrate when you change and move things around on the web. So one of the nice features of Office, you can transform into PDF.
Right.
How do you take enough with you for the annotations such that you preserve it the round trip if you have to come back, or PDF as a screen reader feature that wants to take advantage?
I see.
These kind of things.
That's a really good question. I think that's something that, sorry. So the question was basically, there's a lot of features that allow you to transport documents or transport content between different formats, whether it's on the web or PDF or to a docx. How do we make sure we preserve the annotations? I think that's something that it would be up to the developers of the actual products to ensure that A, you're doing that transportation, but B, that there's a method that exists to do so. So if we're bringing this kind of extra ARIA tags into the web, we should probably work with Adobe and make sure that that's something that's in the PDF standard, for example. So I think that's something that just the companies, we need to work together to ensure that we make available.